Welcome back to Live with AI Virtual CES 2022, a series of webcasts featuring exclusive interviews with industry thought leaders on the topics of ADAS and autonomy across a wide range of industries, along with virtual demos of AEye's CES 2022 Innovation Award-winning Foresight LiDAR, a solid-state and software-centric solution that adapts and optimizes scan patterns in real time. This webcast series is being broadcast across all of AEye's social media channels, and each interview will be archived at a later date on AutoVision News. Joining us today is Brent Blanchard, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Industrial Mobility Products at AEye. Brent is a results-focused leader with a track record of building high-performance cross-functional teams that deliver unprecedented growth and global market expansion. He began his career as a sales engineer at Intel, eventually rising to chief of staff, where he worked hand in hand with the GM on marketing strategies and operations for a $25 billion business involving 2,000 employees. Here today to share insights on optimizing adaptive LiDAR across industrial applications is Brent Blanchard. Brent, welcome to the program today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, Carl. How are you doing?
Doing well. And I have had just a wonderful time talking to all of your colleagues at AEye. So we've talked about automotive, we've talked about trucking, we've got rail, we've got ITS, and now we come to the industrial applications. So when we dive into this, Brent, the first thing on my mind is that, most people kind of assume that LiDAR is LiDAR. So you're going to buy the hardware and that's going to fit the performance that you're looking for. But for AEye, we know that the power is in the software. And this is what I'm learning from your colleagues. So whether it's for rail or whether it's for ITS or automotive, the real power is in the software. But from your vantage point, can you talk about why it's important? Why is the power in the software from your vantage point?
Yes. So, Carl, I think you said earlier, LiDAR is LiDAR. At least that's what people,
right,
look at LiDAR as. And I think you need to step back and really separate that not all LiDAR is the same. Not all LiDAR provides that same level of data that's needed for particular applications. And so at AEye, you can kind of look at it as, today's current generation LiDAR is really static and it's fixed. What that means that when the LiDAR is sensing the scene or it's looking out, it's treating everything the same way. At AEye, we have what we're calling an adaptive LiDAR. And this is what, we're considering the next generation of LiDAR technology. And this allows our sensor to focus on what matters most. And if I was to give a camera analogy, think of a camera that when you take a picture, all pixels are the same and the density is the same. And that's what you're getting with a fixed LiDAR.
Okay.
At AEye, with an adaptive LiDAR that's using its software, we're able to decide where we want to focus the LiDAR, how much density of the pixels. When you think of the resolution of a picture, how dense do we want to have those pixels? So again, this is all comes from our ability to have this software definable LiDAR, and within the software we're able to optimize the LiDAR for a specific application.
So with AEye's adaptive LiDAR, then just tagging onto that, Brent, you've got a LiDAR that can be used across different markets, but where are you seeing the most demand right now in these various industrial applications?
Yeah, so what separates our LiDAR from other LiDARs is really, one, our high performance, and two, our long range detection capabilities. So again, we've already shown that we've been able to detect objects up to 1 kilometer. So you have to think of those markets that are really going to, use the performance and the long range capabilities. And in those markets, we've seen a lot of interest in, you've talked about already talking about ITS. So, intelligent transportation systems, trucking, where you're looking far out and want to making sure that you're scanning the horizon, and rail. Again, these are applications where you have an asset like a train or a truck that's moving very quickly. And as you move quickly, you need to be able to detect hazards in the way at distance, and you need to be able to do that quickly. So again, rail, trucking, ITS, and we're also getting a lot of traction in the aerospace and defense. Because again, if you're thinking about applications, whether it's if we've talked about vertical takeoff and landing, you want to make sure that you're able to detect any hazards in the way of whether you're taking off or landing an aircraft. So, with this adaptive LiDAR technology, this has given kind of applications and markets a new modality of sensing. And this, they're now looking at this as providing them yet another capability to improve the safety and performance of their applications.
And so that is a really good segue then, Brent, kind of into our next topic, which is about how you work with system integrators. And this is one thing that I've learned working with your team and with your colleagues. You have a very unique business model where you're working with system integrators in the various markets that you serve. What does that look like from a customer perspective?
Yeah, our system integrator partnerships is absolutely critical to our success, and it's something that we really pride ourselves in working with the system integrators to provide solutions to their end customers. If I was to put myself in the shoes of a system integrator, they're looking for a supplier that's going to improve the safety of their product, as well as help lower the cost of deployment or lower the cost of the overall solution. And at AEye, this is something that we look at in our LiDAR technology is how do we, with the offerings that we have with the Foresight platform, how do we help them decrease their deployment cost? And I'll give you an example within ITS.
Sure.
In ITS today, they're already using cameras, radar, inductor loops. And again, these are all modalities that are providing a adequate solution, but they still have challenges. For safety, you have the weather conditions, being able to detect objects at distance, at night, in snow, through fog. So they're looking at LiDAR to complement their current systems, to be able to provide additional capabilities, to provide a safer environment. When you look at the cost of deployment, again, these other sensors that are being deployed today, they all have limitations. And one of the limitations is being able to see at distance. And there are applications, whether it's they're having to deploy multiple sensors, at multiple points of the intersection to make sure they have the right coverage and the distance. But with AEye's adaptive LiDAR, we're able to configure the LiDAR to scan long range as well as short range. And this is able to now reduce the total number of sensors, again, reducing the overall cost to deploy.
Right. And so, Brent, we may have touched on this just indirectly so far, but allow me to ask the question just a little more direct, just so we don't skip over it. We obviously know the applications for LiDAR, and particularly AEye's LiDAR when it comes to automotive and when it comes to trucking. But outside of those industries, where else are you seeing the most interest outside of just trucking and automotive?
So I've already touched on ITS, and again, ITS is a significant market because you have intersection management, you have tolling, being able to detect cars at distance, track them across multiple lanes, work zone safety. But outside of ITS, railways and the trains, being able to detect objects further out in distance, because again, you can't just stop a train quickly. You have to be able to ensure the safety of your passengers. And while you're detecting objects, you're also can be doing asset management. So again, looking at the condition of the rails, looking at the condition of the track. Outside of railway, we're again a large field in aerospace and defense. So we have customers in regions outside of the U.S. where they're looking at our LiDAR to equip autonomous people movers in harsh environments, whether it's on a battlefield or whether it's in the desert. But at the same time, we're looking at, or I should say we have customers that are discussing with us plans around the spaceborne applications. So again, you get a lot of interest as now we're sending people into space, they're commercializing space. There are applications where detecting satellites, detecting objects in space, and you need that distance, and you need to be able to you need a LiDAR that can withstand some of those harsh environments. So we're getting a lot of interest in that area.
Of course. So with all this being said, so, automotive and trucking, and then interest in ITS, interest in space. Brent, with CES, we're at the beginning of a brand new year here in 2022. So from your vantage point, what other trends do you see coming down the line this year? Just looking ahead, what do you see from your vantage point in terms of trends that are on the way?
With regards to LiDAR?
Yes, with regards to LiDAR.
I would say, up till now, the market has been somewhat dominated by what I refer to as the current generation of LiDAR. And
Yes.
you've seen these LiDAR, the LiDAR sensors and the rotational LiDARs, and we've seen some directional, but I think that now as the applications and the usage of the LiDAR is maturing, we're having customers that are now understand the challenges that those LiDARs face. And they're starting to appreciate, the software definability of an adaptive LiDAR. And they're, and what this is allowing them to do is take one platform and then apply it across, imagine making a LiDAR application specific, making it optimized for that application. And that is where I see the trend, within the field of LiDAR, as people understand these capabilities. It's kind of, now that you've given them the functionality, they'll start to use that functionality and exploit it to optimize for that application. And so we're starting to see this happen. We were seeing it happen last year as the automotive customers were, again, that they've been working with LiDAR for quite some time as they're applying it for autonomous solutions. They're now wanting to, as that's matured, and I think the industrial markets are somewhat behind, and they're starting to ride along that same maturity curve, and we'll start to see that in the industrial space.
And then just to tag on to that, the potential of adaptive LiDAR for various markets. What do you see this year in 2022? Just keeping that same theme, the potential of adaptive LiDAR for various markets in 2022.
We're just beginning. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface. The markets that we've been focused on, again, have been primarily the markets that, where our sensor is predominantly targeting in the long range high performance. But again, as you give this adaptive LiDAR capability across multiple markets, we're gonna see more applications. So I would say in 2022, it's going to be somewhat of an expansion of the market that we serve, and we're seeing new applications come to us, as people learn about AEye's Foresight platform.
You have an important role at AEye. Tell our viewers a little bit about your everyday work with AEye, Brent.
Yeah, so today I manage I'm the GM and manage the industrial mobility business. So for us, you think of AEye, we have two business units, one that's been focused on automotive and the automotive applications, and then in the industrial mobility. And so this has been a business that we've just kind of started to build as of last year. Okay. And so over the past year, we've been putting the infrastructure in place to support customers, to now take the product that we are manufacturing ourselves. We're today, or to say throughout last year, it's been primarily in proof of concept and evaluation stage. And then this year, we're now building the business to scale it. And we'll be in high volume production. We'll be targeting the markets of ITS, rail, aerospace, defense, trucking, and mobility. With that, we'll also do off-highway vehicles. And so, my objective and my responsibility for the company is to really launch this business this year into volume and to scale out the infrastructure for AEye to support our customers.
Right. Brent, I got to say, when you talk about, scaling this new business model, this new business unit within AEye, I'll be excited to do, an interview with you again, 6 months to a year down the road, just to see how things have progressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's exciting. So what challenges then do you see going forward as you're expanding this new business model?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's just staying focused,
and
not trying to do everything at once. Because I mentioned earlier, as we have customers or, customers trying out our product and understand the capability of the Foresight platform, we're getting, we're getting requests of many new applications. And for me, this year is about staying focused and
Yes.
developing a partner, a partnerships across the markets that we're serving. Because as you talked about earlier, the system integrators are critical and integral to our, to the success of AI in these markets. And so from my objective this year is to make sure that we have, the right partnerships, we are supporting them, what they need, and we're, make sure that we're adding value to the value that they expect from AI to their customers. So, with regards to challenges, I would say just staying focused and building those partnerships and just really just, maintaining our credibility. I always say, it's the say do. Everything that we say, we want to make sure that we're meeting the expectations and we're absolutely doing what we can say that we can do.
Brent, in the last few minutes, that's fantastic. Thank you. In the last few minutes that we have, any final thoughts? Is there anything that I have missed or anything that we should just cover one more time for our viewers?
Yeah, no, I would just want to reiterate, this year in 2022 is going to be, AI's year to really launch our industrial and mobility business and really focus on the industrial applications. I know there's been a lot of activities around in the automotive space. Again, they've been somewhat leading the charge of high volume LiDAR adoption. But as we've taken this platform that is now can be optimized across multiple markets, AI is absolutely going to be well positioned to support the industrial markets, specifically around ITS, rail, aerospace, defense, and not only the trucking and the mobility.
Brent, in the near future, I want to get caught up with you. I want to do an interview again because I'm really curious to see where this goes. And so thank you for your insight. So let's look forward to having another interview like this down the road. But in the meantime, thank you for being part of our CES broadcast today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We have more great content ahead, including exclusive interviews with industry experts and virtual demonstrations of AEye's CES Innovation Award-winning 4Sight LiDAR. This is Live with AEye Virtual at CES 2022.